I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here trying to piece together how my marriage fell apart, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife Lisa for about 10 years. We got married young, had a kid, bought a house, the usual. On paper, everything looked solid. But behind the scenes, there were signs I kept dismissing, small things that I didn't want to face. She was always sharp, bitchy even about my friends, about how I never paid enough attention to her, but I figured that's just how she was. High maintenance, always acting like she was the queen of the universe. Still, I loved her, I thought. The trouble started around 6 months ago. Nothing obvious, no huge fights, no dramatic arguments, just little things that didn't add up. She started staying late at work more often, claiming she was working on a project, but I could tell she was hiding something. She'd get defensive if I pressed her, say I was paranoid, insecure, or just jealous. I wasn't stupid, though. I knew women like Lisa. They throw out insults, deflect, and act like they're the victims. Still, I kept ignoring my gut feeling because I trusted her, or at least I thought I did. Then came the day I noticed she'd been acting weird about her phone. She'd always been pretty secretive about it, but lately she'd hide it if I walked into the room. One afternoon, I finally decided to check her messages when she went to the store. I knew it was wrong, but I was curious and a little hurt. What I found wasn't what I expected. There were texts with someone named Jake that were way too flirty. Nothing explicit at first, but the tone was suggestive enough. My stomach dropped. I didn't confront her right then. I wanted to gather more evidence. A few days later, I noticed her phone kept ringing at odd hours, usually when she thought I wasn't paying attention. I started paying closer attention to her movements. One night, I caught her sneaking out of the house after I'd gone to bed. She was wearing sneakers and her phone was in her hand. I followed her from a distance, my heart pounding. She went to a local bar, not unusual, right? Except she stayed way longer than she said she would. When she finally came back, I was waiting outside in my car. She looked nervous, avoiding eye contact. I just sat there watching her get into the house, feeling like I was losing my mind. A week later, I decided to check the security footage from our smart doorbell. I'd installed it myself, just to keep an eye on things. I had a gut feeling I was missing something big. And what I saw that night made everything crash down on me. There was Lisa, sneaking into the bathroom when she thought I was at work. And then there was the plumber, Tom, the guy who fixed our bathroom leak. That son of a bitch. They'd been meeting there in the house whenever I was out. The doorbell recorded it all, the secret conversations, her giggles, their hands touching. They exchanged numbers during the job, and from that moment I knew I had to face the truth. She was cheating on me with the plumber. That discovery hit me like a freight train. I felt sick, betrayed. I'd trusted her, and she was throwing it all away for some plumber's dick. I confronted her the next day, but I'll tell you, that was one of the most infuriating experiences of my life. She denied everything, called me paranoid, insane even, said I was imagining things, that she'd never do something so disgusting. Told me I was just insecure, that I was making up stories because I didn't want to admit she was tired of me. I saw right through her lies, though. She was lying through her teeth, trying to spin it, but I wasn't born yesterday. My mind was racing. I couldn't believe she'd do this to me. All those years, all that time I put into this marriage. And for what? Some plumber. It hurt a lot. I felt humiliated, angry, and heartbroken all at once. I wanted to scream, to break something, but I just stood there listening to her bullshit, feeling like the biggest sucker alive. I knew I had a choice: confront her, forgive her, or walk away. But inside, I already knew what I was going to do. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Not without some kind of payback. Not without making her regret what she'd done. That's where I am now, trying to figure out my next move, but trust me, I'm already planning my revenge. After that night of watching her lie through her teeth, I couldn't sleep. My head was spinning with rage, confusion, and that sick feeling of betrayal. I replayed everything I saw on the camera, the way she whispered, the way she giggled with Tom, how she seemed so comfortable cheating right in our house like it was nothing. I kept asking myself why. Why would she do this? After all these years, was I just some kind of fool? Had she really been so unhappy? Or was she just bored, looking for some excitement outside the marriage? Honestly, I don't think I'll ever get a clear answer, but I knew one thing: she'd crossed a line, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. The next morning, I got up early, more determined than ever to find a way to confront her that would make her regret what she'd done. I didn't want her to think she could just cheat and walk away, like I was some idiot who wouldn't find out. That wasn't happening. I spent the day plotting, coming up with a plan to turn the tables on her. I decided I wouldn't just blow up at her in some heated argument. I wanted her to see the full extent of what I knew, how deeply she'd screwed us both over. That meant gathering evidence, setting traps, and making sure she'd understand her actions had consequences. I started by getting a recording device, nothing fancy, just a small one I hid in her purse. That way, I could catch her talking about the affair when she thought I wasn't around. I also kept the footage from the doorbell handy. Every step I took, I felt more confident and more furious. At the same time, I knew I had to be careful. If she found out I was onto her, she'd probably go full-on defensive or try to destroy what little trust we still had left. I couldn't let that happen. I needed her to admit everything, or at least give me enough proof to make her own words betray her. Over the next few days, I watched her carefully. She was still acting bitchy, snapping at me for the smallest things, but I also noticed she was more nervous than usual. She started acting extra cautious, maybe worried I was onto her, which was exactly what I wanted. I kept the recordings running, and I kept a mental note of every suspicious move she made. Meanwhile, I also began to dig into her phone just a little. I didn't want her to get suspicious, but I knew I'd find something if I looked hard enough. And I did. I found a hidden folder full of texts, and the messages she exchanged with Tom were worse than I expected. Flirty, explicit, talking about the next time, and making it more than just a quick leak fix. Seeing that just confirmed everything I'd already suspected. One night, I decided it was time to confront her directly. I told her I knew about the affair, that I'd seen everything on the footage, and I was done pretending. Her face went blank for a second, then she started her usual lies, saying I was crazy, that I was just imagining things, that Tom was just a friend helping with the leak. She tried to turn it around, saying I was jealous and insecure, but I didn't buy it. I told her she was a cheating bitch and that I had all the evidence I needed. Her reaction was priceless. She got defensive, started crying, then pivoted to insults, calling me pathetic and clueless. Honestly, it didn't surprise me that she'd turn into a bitch in that moment. That's her usual MO: deflect, deny, attack. But I knew I had her cornered now. That confrontation was just the beginning. I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief because I finally had proof. Anger because I was furious she betrayed me so blatantly. My mind kept racing with thoughts of what to do next. I didn't want her to think she could keep playing me for a fool, so I started planning everything. I knew I'd have to take control of the situation, get my stuff ready, and decide whether I was going to divorce her or try to fight for the marriage. Honestly, the thought of staying with someone who cheats so openly made me sick. I couldn't imagine waking up every day in that house, knowing she'd been screwing around behind my back. But at the same time, I was hurt, and that pain made me want to make her pay. I spent that night wide awake, trying to come up with a plan for revenge that would teach her a lesson she'd never forget. I didn't want just a breakup. I wanted her to realize she'd lost something real, that her betrayal would cost her more than she thought. That's when I decided I'd hit her where it hurt: her reputation, her pride, her sense of security. She thought she could get away with it, but I was about to show her otherwise. Whatever happens next, I knew one thing: I wasn't going to let her get away with this without some consequences. That's a promise. Over the next few days, I kept my plans close to the chest. I wasn't rushing into anything. I wanted to make sure she felt the pressure, felt like she was under siege. I kept recording, kept watching, and kept thinking about how to turn everything to my advantage. I also started talking to a few friends who knew her, trying to get a sense of how far she'd go with her lies and manipulations. Honestly, I felt like I was in some kind of bad movie, waiting for the moment to strike, trying not to lose my mind in the process. One thing I did realize quickly was that Lisa was getting more anxious. I could tell from her behavior. She was extra bitchy, snapping at me over small things, acting like she was the victim. She'd also leave her phone around more often, thinking I wasn't paying attention. I was watching her like a hawk, waiting for her to slip up. I knew I had enough evidence to blow her world apart, but I wanted to do it right. I wanted her to see that I wasn't some naive fool. I was gathering everything I needed so I could hit her hard. Then one afternoon, I found something that made my blood run cold. I was looking through her messages when I noticed a new contact in her phone, Tom. Not just that, but the entire conversation was explicit. They'd been talking about meeting again, about sneaking away, about how to hide it better. I saw plans for another secret visit, and the worst part, she was talking about making it more than just sex, saying she wanted to feel alive again. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. All those times I thought she was just stressed, just taking care of the kid, just tired from work. She was out there lying to my face. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling back to her words, her lies, and how I'd been played for a sucker. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time I wanted her to see I had all the cards. I sat in my study, printing out screenshots of her messages, saving the videos from the doorbell and making a detailed timeline. Every lie, every secret meeting, every sneaky text. I wanted her to understand how thoroughly I'd uncovered her lies. The feeling was bitter. I'd been so blind, so trusting, and now everything was in ruins. The next day I told her I knew everything. She was in the kitchen pretending to be busy when I laid it all out, proof of her betrayal, her secret meetings, her lies. Her face twisted into that same bitchy smirk she always wore when she thought she was winning an argument. She denied it all, of course. Said Tom was just a work friend, that I was crazy to think she'd do something so disgusting. She even threw in the usual line, "You're paranoid, Mike. You're just insecure. You don't trust me." Like that makes it. Okay, I just looked at her, disgusted, and told her she was a cheat, a liar, and that I had enough evidence to ruin her if I wanted. That's when she started crying, fake tears, of course. She begged me to believe her, said she made a mistake, that she didn't want to lose everything. I didn't buy her tears. I've seen that kind of fake sympathy before. To me, it was just her trying to manipulate her way out of trouble again. But I was done listening to her lies. I told her I was sick of her bullshit, that I was sick of being played for a fool. I told her I'd think about what to do next, but I already knew I couldn't stay with someone who so casually threw away our marriage for a quick thrill with some plumber. As I walked away from her that day, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. I knew I'd have to decide whether to leave her, to fight her, or even to make her pay in a way she'd never forget. And honestly, I was leaning toward the latter. I wasn't about to just let this slide. No way. I needed her to understand that her actions had consequences, and I was ready to make sure she learned that lesson. The hardest part was the emotional toll. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious, every emotion crashing down on me at once. I didn't want to be the guy who got cheated on, but here I was, facing the reality that my wife, who I loved, who I thought loved me, had been screwing around behind my back. And the worst part, she'd lied to my face, made me doubt myself, and tried to gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. That realization hit me hard. I realized I needed to get control of myself, figure out what I really wanted, and prepare for whatever came next. Because I knew this wasn't over yet. Not even close. The days that followed were a blur of planning and emotional chaos. Every time I looked at her, I saw the lies, the sneaking around, the way she'd betrayed everything we built. I kept replaying her words and actions, trying to decide what's worse, her cheating or how she lied about it. Honestly, I felt humiliated that I'd been so blind, so trusting, believing she was just stressed or overwhelmed. Meanwhile, she was out there, actively hiding another life from me. That hurt more than I thought was possible. I started to see that I couldn't just confront her again and hope she'd come clean. No, I needed to turn this around, to make her feel what it was like to be exposed, to be caught in her own web of lies. I kept thinking about how I could make her suffer just a little, to make her understand how deeply she'd crossed the line. I didn't want some petty revenge. What I wanted was for her to realize she'd lost something real, that her actions would cost her more than a simple breakup. So I came up with a plan. I decided to record her again, but this time I'd be more strategic. I set up hidden cameras around the house, Nothing obvious, just small devices I knew she wouldn't suspect. I also kept the recordings from the doorbell going, just in case she did anything else sneaky. My goal was to catch her in the act again, or at least get her to slip up so she'd say something damning. I also started putting together a detailed timeline of all her secret meetings with Tom, every lie she told, every excuse she made. One evening I noticed something I hadn't caught before. She was acting especially edgy. Bitchy as hell, snapping at me over tiny things, pacing around the house like she was nervous. I knew she was feeling the pressure from my surveillance, and honestly I was glad. It meant I was getting under her skin, making her paranoid. That's when I decided it was time for the final confrontation, one way or another. I told her I knew everything about the texts, the meetings, the secret visits. Her reaction was predictably defensive. She denied everything, spun some bullshit about me spying, said I was crazy, and accused me of ruining her reputation. I sat there, calm but furious, and told her that her lies wouldn't save her anymore. I had enough evidence to blow her world apart, and I was prepared to do just that. She started crying fake tears this time and said she was sorry, that she made a mistake, that she didn't want to lose everything. But I wasn't buying it. I looked her in the eyes and told her she'd already lost my trust and that I was going to decide what to do next. That moment marked a turning point. I realized I couldn't go back to the way things were. I had to make a choice, either stay and try to fix this mess or walk away and start over. Honestly, I was leaning toward the latter. The thought of living with someone who'd cheat so openly, who lied to my face every day, made me sick. But I also knew I wanted her to feel some of what I was feeling: humiliation, regret, maybe even loneliness. That's when I decided to lay a trap, one that would make her realize how badly she'd screwed up. I started leaving little clues around the house, hidden messages, fake emails, even some accidental slips of information. I wanted her to feel like I was always one step ahead. I also began talking to her friends, subtly dropping hints about what I knew to see if she'd slip up in front of someone else. The idea was to make her realize she'd lost control, that I was no longer the naive husband she'd been able to manipulate. I wanted her to see that I was serious about ending this, about making her pay for her betrayal. In the midst of all this, I felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety. Part of me was glad I'd uncovered the truth and was finally taking control. But another part was broken. The trust was shattered and I wasn't sure I could ever repair it. Every time I saw her bitchy face, I remembered how she'd lied, how she'd made a fool out of me. It was like a knife twisting in my gut. Still, I knew I had to stay strong. I had to hold on to my dignity and prepare for whatever was coming next, because I knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot, and I was ready to see it through to the end, whatever that might be. The atmosphere in the house grew tense with every passing day. Lisa was acting more paranoid, snapping at me over nothing and avoiding eye contact whenever she thought I might question her. I could tell she was starting to feel the pressure, and honestly, that was exactly what I wanted. I kept my cool, maintaining the facade of a calm husband while secretly working out my final moves. Every little detail was carefully planned. I wanted her to feel cornered, vulnerable, and most of all, exposed. I intensified my surveillance. The hidden cameras caught her sneaking around more often, whispering on the phone, and exchanging texts that I now knew were about the affair. I played the waiting game, knowing that sooner or later she'd slip up or say something revealing. Meanwhile, I kept the recordings running nonstop, collecting every piece of evidence I needed to make her regret her choices. I was surprised by how calm I'd become, how cold, even because deep down, I knew I was about to deliver a knockout punch. The kind she wouldn't walk away from easily. One night, I finally caught her in a moment of reckless vulnerability. She'd gone to the bathroom and I snuck my phone into the room just to check her messages one last time. The conversation with Tom was explicit and ongoing. They'd planned another secret meetup at her office, saying things like "can't wait to finally feel you again." And this time, I wanted to be more than just sex. Seeing that made my blood boil. I felt a surge of anger mixed with a strange sense of clarity. I knew I couldn't let this go any longer. If I didn't act now, she'd probably slip away, thinking she was untouchable. The next morning, I sat her down. I told her I had everything, that I wasn't going to let her spin her lies anymore. I laid out all the evidence, screenshots, recordings, the timeline, and watched her face drain of color. She tried to deny it at first, but I cut her off. I reminded her of all the times she lied, snapped, and avoided me, all to hide her affair. Her usual bitchy attitude was replaced with that fake, desperate look she always used when she was cornered. She kept insisting she was innocent, that I'd misunderstood, that Tom was just fixing the leak and nothing more. But I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. She was caught, plain and simple. Then she did something I didn't expect. She started crying, not the genuine kind, but the kind that's meant to manipulate. She begged me to forgive her, said she'd been stressed, that it was just sex, that she didn't mean to hurt me. She told me she was sorry, that she loved me and the family, that she'd stop seeing Tom, but I'd heard enough. I looked her in the eyes and told her that her words didn't matter anymore. Her lies, her betrayal, they'd broken what little trust I had left. I told her I needed some time to think, that I wouldn't be making any rash decisions right now. That night, I stayed up late, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. I was torn. Part of me still loved her, but another part couldn't forget the image of her betraying me so blatantly. I realized I had a choice: forgive her and try to rebuild what we lost, or walk away for good. I knew I couldn't stay in this house, living with a woman who disrespected me that much. But I also knew I wanted her to feel some of the pain she'd caused. That's when I decided I'd give her a taste of what she'd been doing behind my back. I set a trap, something subtle but effective, to make her understand that I'd been watching her, that I knew everything, and that she couldn't keep hiding forever. The next morning, I went about my day pretending everything was normal. Inside, I was preparing for the final act. I sent a few accidental messages to her, made sure she saw I was aware of her secret meetings, and left clues that hinted I was in control. I also started talking to her friends, subtly warning them about her behavior. I wanted her to feel the walls closing in, to realize her double life was unraveling. And then the moment came. I waited until she was alone, then I confronted her again, this time with a calm but firm tone. I told her I knew about the last conversation, that I had all the proof I needed to end this once and for all. Her face twisted in that same bitchy sneer, but she knew she was beaten. I saw the realization dawn in her eyes, that her lies weren't going to save her anymore. I told her I didn't want to be with someone who'd cheat and lie, that I was done fighting for a sinking ship. Her fake tears and pleas were just noise to me now. I told her she made her choice and that I was going to make sure she'd regret it, one way or another. That evening, I packed a bag, ready to leave. I didn't want to stay in the house with someone who'd betrayed me so thoroughly. I knew I'd face a lot of pain in the days to come, but I also felt a strange sense of liberation. I was finally taking control of my life, and I was damn sure I was going to make her regret her betrayal. Whatever happened next, I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore. The next chapter is set to be the most intense yet. Do you want me to keep going? That night, as I sat in my car outside the house, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. All my life, I'd believed in the idea of a marriage, trust, fidelity, partnership. And now, looking back, I realized how much I'd sacrificed, how much I'd overlooked because I loved her. But love isn't supposed to hurt this much, not when it's all built on lies. I knew I'd been naive, thinking I could fix what was broken, that she'd somehow come back to me. But her actions proved otherwise. She had chosen her affair, her secret life, over everything we built together. In the days that followed, I moved out. I packed what I could, left behind the memories that haunted me, and started trying to piece myself back together. It wasn't easy. Every corner of that house reminded me of her betrayal. But I also felt a strange sense of empowerment. I had uncovered her lies, caught her red-handed, and made her face the consequences. She tried to reach out, to apologize and beg for another chance, but I didn't answer her calls. I didn't want to hear her lies anymore. She had lost her right to be heard. Looking back, I learned some hard lessons. Trust is fragile, and once it's shattered, it's nearly impossible to repair. I also learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away and leaving someone to deal with the fallout of their own choices. She thought she could cheat and lie her way out of it, but the truth always comes out. It always does. And when it does, it leaves a trail of destruction behind. I realize now that I deserve someone who respects me, who values honesty, and who understands what loyalty really means. This entire experience has changed me. It's made me more cautious, more aware of what to look for, but also more aware of what I refuse to accept anymore. I won't be that naive husband again, trusting blindly while someone abuses that trust. I will rebuild in my own time, in my own way. And I'll carry this lesson with me. No matter how much you love someone, if they cheat and lie and make a fool of you, the only thing you can do is walk away and take back control of your life. So here's my final takeaway. Don't let yourself be the fool in the story. Trust is earned, not given blindly. And if someone betrays that trust, you have every right to walk away, to seek your peace, and to find happiness on your own terms. Because at the end of the day, nobody deserves to be betrayed like I was, especially not by someone you once thought loved you. I may be bruised, I may be hurt, but I'm still standing, stronger than I was before and finally ready to move on.